right, your meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Hello, everybody. My name is Tane Danger. I am so excited to be with you here, wherever it is that you all are right now. So it is Sunday in Minnesota, which if you're in the comedy and improv world in particular, you probably know means that it is time for Improv a Go-Go, the long-running improv show that has brought literally thousands of improvisers to the stage at a variety of venues all over the Twin Cities. And today is very special because it is the 18th birthday of Improv a Go-Go. If Improv a Go-Go were a person, it could smoke cigarettes now, except it couldn't because we literally just passed a law that makes it so that 18-year-olds can't smoke. But it's still very momentous, and we are super excited to be celebrating this fabulous institution of improv here in our wonderful community. And since we are all sort of separated right now and not able to be together, we wanted to do something fun and meaningful and bring together a batch of the folks who have a long history with Improv a Go-Go, have been part of it. It's helped their improv careers in one way or another, and just have them join us for a whole series of quick chats this afternoon and say what Improv a Go-Go and huge theater in particular means to them. And so that's what we're going to do today. And I'm super excited and honored to do it. So I don't know, I've talked enough. I should probably welcome our first guest, the first person that I'm going to chat with about Improv a Go-Go and huge theater. So without further ado, a big round of applause, Taj Ruler, everybody. Yay.
Hello.
Hi, Taj Ruler. Where are you calling from? Tell us.
Oh, I'm actually at an elementary school right now, just hanging out.
Really?
I wanted to get in touch with a good time in my life when I remember.
That's awesome. I imagine there's lots of room there now.
Yeah, there's like so many empty rooms that I can just like pop in and out of anytime I want. I don't need a hall pass.
Whatever you want to do. So thank you so much for doing this. So let me just add, how long do you remember the first time you did like Improv a Go-Go?
I remember the first time I saw Improv a Go-Go for sure. Okay. I was 16. I was a baby. I've been going to Improv a Go-Go literally half of my life. It was the first time I'd never been. I asked if they would take a check, even though it was $1. I had zero cash on me, and they laughed and they were like, "Just go in." And I was like, "Oh, my friend paid for me." But it was just funny because I had no idea. And I went in, and like the first group I saw, they were all dressed as clowns, and I was like,
"What? Terrifying.
This improv?" Yeah, I was terrified. But then I realized that was just that group, and I'd been going back ever since.
So was that was your first sort of like foray into improv generally, was seeing Improv a Go-Go?
Yeah, I was taking a improv camp at the Brave New Workshop, a youth camp, like just in the summer. It was like a 2-week long camp. And they were like, if you want to see some improv, you can go to Improv a Go-Go. And I was like, okay. And then that is what my Sunday nights became for the rest of high school. And then in my early adulthood as well.
That's so cool. And so, I mean, you are like a very accomplished improviser and actor and a variety of things, but I'm just curious about like other folks like who you were going to Improv a Go-Go with then, who maybe weren't going to go into improv the way that you all are. I don't know, what's the difference, I guess, like how just sort of, I'm hesitate to say lay people, but lay non-improv people, how they were sort of seeing it and what you were seeing.
They were not. I mean, they were excited to like go do something, but I was like, everybody, you have to come with me. And so rarely did anybody really come. So it was often my dad would come and fall asleep because that's just my dad. That's nothing personal against Improv a Go-Go. He will fall asleep in any dark room at any point in time.
I'm pretty sure I've had your dad fall asleep at one of my shows.
Yeah, he's fallen asleep mid-conversation with me in broad daylight. So like don't take offense to it. So it was, and then when I got old enough, I would just drive by myself and I would just go and watch the improv. I did not see many people didn't come because they were kind of like, wait, I don't understand. Is this theater? I'm like, yeah, but with no script. And people wouldn't understand. They were like, that seemed too scripted to me. I was like, you don't understand.
That's funny. All right. So let me ask you this then. Just what is it about Improv a Go-Go, this show where, there's 4 different groups typically that take the stage all in one night. It's a random lottery of who's going to be performing every season. I don't know. What is it in your mind that makes that so special?
I mean, I think the thing that was so exciting was that you didn't know what was going to happen. And when you started to when I went more often, to recognize the groups that would come back, and you could be like, oh, it's this group or it's this group. I would love to see, like, 5-Man Job would be amazing. Splendid Things, when they were around, were like, I was just so excited to see all of these amazing improvisers doing things that, like, I just had no idea was even possible to do in, like, a performance world. So for me, it was just very exciting in that sense.
That is very cool. Okay, I don't want to take up too much more of your time because we have a whole list of guests. I'm going to ask everybody, though, to make just a random comparison for me. So if Improv a Go-Go were a kitchen utensil or like tool gadget, what would it be?
Oh, it would be an Instant Pot, because you just put everything in there and you just hit go, and it makes magic in minutes.
Wow, that was instantly good answer. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Taj Ruler, you're lovely and fabulous. Thank you so much
for Tane.
With us.
Bye.
All right, look at, and my next guest is already here. He popped up so quickly. Hi, Brett Meyer. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Tane, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited you're here. So, Brett, before we get into who you are and your connection with Improv a Go-Go, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from a Sid Mead concept painting of a living room of the future from the 70s.
Those are my favorite living rooms of the future from the 70s.
They have usually the sunken couches that are in the ground.
Yeah, whatever happened? Did a lot of people, like, when the 80s came around, have to raise their sunken couches, do you think? Like, that was a whole business of...
Yeah, I mean, it messes up, like, the foundation, so I think people were like, this is going to cost too much. Above ground sofas. Above
ground sofas only. Hey, we should say what we're doing here. So we're celebrating 18 years of Improv a Go-Go and the magic of huge theater. Can you tell folks at home just a little bit about your connection to both either Improv a Go-Go and huge theater more generally?
Yeah. So I kind of like just got into improv because I realized I didn't have any friends or like didn't leave the house ever. So I was like, improv will be a good way to get involved in something.
Can I just say, you were just ahead of your time, because now you've just described everyone now, basically.
Okay, great. Perfect. So I started taking classes. I was taking classes at Huge, and kind of started a group there. And then suddenly they were like, hey, we should put in for Improv a Go-Go. And I was like, okay, whatever that is. And then we got a show in, and it was just really exciting. And and like we made little like flyers and stuff, and we spelled theater wrong, so it was just this big mess. But it was great.
How did you spell it?
I think it was theater, if I remember correctly. I remember there were more R's than there needed.
It was so theatery that it was theater. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we all feel like we're creating something new when we go.
Right. We totally are. So this first time, this was Improv a Go-Go, and I think that this is probably true for tons and tons of improvisers in the Twin Cities and beyond, that doing Improv a Go-Go was your first sort of like performing in front of a live non-class audience, right? Is that?
Yeah.
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 So what was that like? Tell us about that.
It was great. It was one of those things where like the stakes were super high, but also super low at the same time, which I really dig, because that's, I think, kind of the beauty of Improv a Go-Go. Is like, yeah, nobody knows what to expect. So you can, you just go out there and have fun and do something.
What was your group? What was that group, and what were you doing?
It was, so it's the group is Fifth Wheel, which we still try to do stuff. But really it was, I think we were doing an Armando, if I remember correctly.
You can just say it and we'll believe you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. That's what we were doing.
Armando. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like this was the first time I'd really done anything. So it was, I was like, I don't know, maybe this will work.
What did that mean to you, I guess? What was, so you did it, and it was
Mhm.
this one-time thing, or you got to perform several times. I guess I'm just curious, like, what did you walk away from that experience with?
A sense that this was something that I could really see myself doing. It was like it was the moment where I think the switch was flipped, and then suddenly I was allowed to define what improv meant. And as soon as that, at least for me, not for everyone, um, but just like after that first show, then suddenly it was like, okay, now I can kind of decide what that means for me. And now I've got all these ideas for other things that I want to do.
And what did you decide then? What does improv mean for you?
Um, it means that boy, oh boy, that's a big one.
I know it's only our second interview of the hour, and
I
I'm
know
getting real deep.
it's so deep. I don't know. I guess that's kind of what I'm still trying to explore. There's the fun of having the super polished and like, this is what we're going to do. And then there's the fun of like, let's not even talk about this at all and just go out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And everything in between. And that's a lot of fun.
And what about, I mean, because you were taking classes at the same time
Mhm.
at Huge, and then you were doing Improv a Go-Go. And so you are very much connected with the community that Huge Theater, has been building and continues to build here in the Twin Cities. I mean, for folks who haven't been a part of that before, or maybe they're tuning in for the first time to hear about Huge Theater or Improv a Go-Go, can you talk a little bit about what that community of artists and students and improvisers is like between the classes and Improv a Go-Go and just the Huge Theater scene generally?
The Huge theater scene is seriously one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me in my life. It's just everyone is so incredibly supportive, and they love hearing what you're up to, and they love, like talking about what you've done or what they've seen you in. And it's just like everyone's there for one another and everyone's so welcoming, and that is just, I feel, really rare. And especially in something that can be like, oh well, I'm auditioning for this or I'm going to get this, like it has the potential to be like super like potentially cutthroat, but it's not at all. And everyone is just there and they want to see what you're doing, and everyone just always seems like super excited, and it's wonderful. It's one of my favorite places in the world. And
That
I'm
is
just so
one of the
lucky to
most
be a part of it.
beautiful, lovely statements I can imagine, and I'm tempted to end it there. But I promised that I was going to ask everybody to make a comparison. So we'll do Huge Theater. And since you noted that you're calling us from inside a painting, if
Mhm.
Huge Theater was a school of painting or art, what school of art and or painting would it be?
It would be found object mixed media.
I mean, I think that people can probably figure this out, but just to put you to work, can you unravel that metaphor for us? How so?
I feel like it's because I kind of do this. It's like you can take something that looks like trash or literally garbage or something that's just not very attractive, and you can turn it into something beautiful. And you can pop it in a hallway and walk down and show everyone what you're doing.
That is very sweet. I think that is great. That is lovely. Brett, thank you so much for taking this time to chat with us from inside your secret painting. I love it. It was fantastic to chat with you. Thank you for sharing these wonderful memories.
Thanks, Tane. It was a lot of fun.
Yay! Okay, moving right along. This is a big one. This next one's very exciting. Hey, look, everybody! It's Nels Lettuce, one of the founders of Huge Theater, is here. Hi, Nels. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tane. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Studio City, California.
Really? How are things in Studio City?
That's great. That's great.
Great. Good. Well, let me ask you this: since you were one of the founders of Huge, and you've been around the scene for a long time, what was it like? Can I just say, 18 years ago? Take us back in time to Twin Cities improv life. 18 years ago. I'm not good at math, so that's 2002. Correct. And
Yeah.
so what's a scene like? What are you doing? What are some of the other folks, and how did we get to where we are now? You have 10
Gosh.
seconds.
All right, I'll do my best. I think like at that time was when all the disparate people in the Twin Cities who were doing improv that hadn't met each other started to meet each other. You know, so like I would go to Improv Go Go and I would see other groups that I had no idea ever existed and doing things that I didn't think we had in town because there wasn't a real good way to find those things out. You know, there was an improv message board that I ran, but other than that, you know, the social media, there wasn't anything like that. So just making that kind of a focal point and a magnetic point, then everybody sort of started seeing like, oh, there are more people like me out there.
That's very cool. And so it's starting to build a community, you're sort of saying from the get-go. How does it evolve over time? Like, how have you seen it change, if it has changed?
Oh boy, how the community has changed.
Yeah, how improv in the Twin Cities. Joe Rapp just burst into our screen without us asking. That's fun. That's a fun cameo. I think that you're supposed to be hidden now, but it's fine. You can.
Nah, you're fine.
All right, sorry, Nels, you were making a profound point about how is improv and the improv community in the Twin Cities through things like Improv A Go Go and Huge Theater, like how have you seen that evolve, change, grow, become something that it is now?
The first thing that comes to mind is a kind of a cheesy analogy, but it makes me think of like a pearl in an oyster. You know, like there's one little thing that started, and it was started with, you know, the idea of like bringing people together and having this community build, and it was small, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and it's still a larger and more satisfying reflection of what it was in the beginning too. So I think it's, in that respect, it's grown. I don't know if there's been a lot of changes, but it just feels like grown in almost like the existential life way, like growing up and maturing. Yeah.
I love that because it kind of, to me at least, reflects what I usually think of as what improv is in a lot of ways, is a variety of different things coming together and helping all those different pieces grow and become sort of the fullest thing that they could be in a way that they wouldn't really be able to unless they had come together somehow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you were also artistic director for Huge for a number of years. Mm-hmm. I've always been, how do you artistic direct in improv theater that has a whole variety of different shows going on, dozens and dozens of artists? Just what was that job like?
It's interesting for sure. You know, it's as hard it is for people to understand what improv is when they don't know, it's even harder to understand like how do you facilitate that, you know. So as artistic director, there was a lot of like encouragement and pushing in certain directions, you know. For the most part, the people who had, you know, been taking classes or just getting into improv, they're very talented and very excited, and we would just try to push them in certain areas. Like sometimes we would see too many of this kind of show or whatever, and then we'd say, well, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that, and then getting in there and fine-tuning those little pieces. But man, the as artistic director and sitting there and watching as many shows as I did, it was just like astounding to watch the community grow and just get better and better and better.
So let me ask you to put this head on. So that is a beautiful note on bringing folks together around Improv Go Go. When you all were thinking about founding and creating Huge Theater in particular, and actually having like a physical theater to do this, can you say a little bit about why that was important? Why that was something you felt like the Twin Cities needed at that time?
Because I think we all feel free people after me to completely contradict what I'm saying, but I feel like we all kind of felt like improv deserved that, you know, or the art form itself and the people practicing the art form. You know, this was sort of it's been a hidden gem for a long time, and still in a lot of ways is, but we wanted to make things more permanent and show people that this is a viable art form. This is a thing that can exist, and it is real. Some people think it's not real, but it is real. And to get this place together and grow this community, we can, put our mark on the cities and show people that this is a legitimate art form, and this is something that people do and people have a lot of love and passion for.
That's beautiful. Okay, this is my final question. If Huge Theater were an elaborate dessert, what would it be?
Okay. Huge Theater, this is so appropriate. There's a dessert that I dreamed one day. I just had a dream about this dessert. And Huge Theater is like a dream that came true for me. But the dessert was a pancake. And on top of the pancake is a slice of fruit pie. And then on top of the fruit pie was a scoop of vanilla ice cream.
That is lovely and
yeah, lovely, right?
Yeah, I want to be
like it was, and it was just in the dream. It felt like the most perfect, amazing dessert of all time, and then you wake up and things, reality sets in. But like, that's what Huge was. It's kind of this. When I first started doing improv, like I had little inklings of thinking about, God, wouldn't it be cool to have my own theater or the own place for improv, and it was always a dream. It was always this dream. And it felt so perfect when I was dreaming about it. And now to see where we are 18 years later, all these years later, it is a literal like dream come true.
I can't ask you to say anything more profound and magical than that. Can everybody, wherever you are, a big round of applause. Nels Lennis, thank you so much for being here with us. This was wonderful. Oh, this is great. I love this. Hey, I'm going to just sort of reintroduce what we're doing. So my name is Tane Danger. I'm the host of this show, this improv show called The Theater of Public Policy, which got its start at Huge Theater. And today we are celebrating 18 years of Improv A Go-Go, the amazing variety improv show that happens every single Sunday these days at Huge Theater in Minneapolis. Improv A Go-Go is this fabulous opportunity where every Sunday night, 4 different improv groups typically take the stage. They have a set. And as we've already heard from a couple of our speakers, it's the place where a lot of people get their first experience on stage. It's a place where the community still comes together and sees all of the new and veteran talent in the Twin Cities doing improv. And it has a lot of special meaning and memories for a lot of people, including, I would guess, our next speaker. We're going to bring up, I'm almost sure, Hannah Weideman is going to, yes, there's Hannah. Yay. Hi, Hannah.
Hey.
Hey, Hannah, where are you calling us from? Wrong answers only, please.
Inside of my own womb.
Oh, is it like warm?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, that's good. It looks comfy. That's nice. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. This is great. Can I just ask, do you remember your first Improv A Go-Go or
Yes,
either
I
seeing
do.
it or being in it?
I think it was like 13, well, maybe, okay, so I was 19 years old and I was at school at McAllister, and I had, moved from Wisconsin. And I'd never seen any improv before, but I was doing sketch comedy. And so I thought, I'll go over to this improv theater and see what I think. And the Brave New Workshop, I'd already gone there for some of their main stage performances. So I was like, well, I'll check out some improv. And I remember seeing a show called I think it was called After Party with Jill and Kelvin. And they basically, I don't even really remember it. I think it was set after a party, but it was like my first time seeing a really, really strong female improviser on stage. And I was like, this is for me. I need to do this. So I started taking classes at Brave New Workshop like maybe 6 months after that. But I would go pretty much every other Sunday to Improv A Go-Go as frequently as I could, like take the bus from Mac over there and by myself because nobody else really wanted to come.
There's so many things I want to ask you about in this, what you were just saying. I mean, one thing I'll just start with is, so you had started out doing more scripted sketch stuff. And then
Yeah.
this was sort of your first piece into improv. Can I just, because a lot of people, especially those watching, probably know you best as an improviser, but I know that you still do a lot of sketch things. What was it about seeing that improv piece that you were like, ooh, yeah, nuts to these scripted things. I love the idea of it being improvised.
I think it was like the freedom of it all because, well, for two reasons. One, I was like on a sketch team and I was a low ranking member of the sketch team. So a lot of ideas or sketches I would put out there, they would just like not get selected, and we would do the show and we'd be rehearsing these sketches and I hadn't contributed to them creatively. And I liked that improv, it's like no one else has control over what you're doing, and you can just flow with it and present it and not have people tell you like, that's not funny enough, or that's not enough times hitting that beat. And I think I sometimes would get bored doing sketch and I would like improvise in the middle of a sketch, and people don't always like that.
I was about to say, having done that before, you don't win friends in the sketch community just being like, I'm going to throw the script out. But yeah, it's more fun that way.
Oh, I have been hired like before to do like scripted shows where I was the only improvised character. And that was really fun for me because that's like the kind of scripted show I would like to do.
That's awesome. So the other piece that you noted in there was that it was particularly meaningful or inspiring to see this strong female improviser. I presume you're talking Jill Bernard in that case.
Yeah, and also Lauren Anderson, because I saw her doing 5-man job. Like I want to say it was the same weekend. I don't have a great memory, especially during that time because I was college and also alcohol. But like I remember seeing them both in the show and thinking that.
Yeah, and because this is one of the neat things I think about the community that Huge is like trying to intentionally work on building, and then Improv A Go-Go also being this sort of open lottery system, is that you do see a lot of performers and people that are not always maybe who, I don't know, again, especially thinking back 18 years ago, maybe what the stereotype of like, oh, an improviser is somebody who looks like Tane, but it's like, no, we know that that's not necessarily right. And like having that be intentional and part of what Huge in Theater is about has been really important from the beginning. And it sounds like that had an impact on you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when Improv A Go-Go started, like the scene was still so small, and it was kind of like we went, and a lot of times you would get a mixed bag, but also it was frequently like an all-stars night, just because there was only a handful of people who were ready to perform all the time. And so there was something cool about that, like seeing groups that were amazing and fantastic and so much more talented than you ever felt like you could be. But I think what's special about Improv A Go-Go as it's evolved is that now people like really have a chance to go up and just try stuff. And there's way more people to choose from. So yeah, you get groups that are like a wide variety of representations and have different ideas, and it's grown a lot in that way.
Yeah. So for folks maybe who've never seen Improv A Go-Go, who maybe for some reason are like tuning into this live stream because they got lost on the internet and they just are curious, pitch them on like why Improv A Go-Go would be like a cool, fun thing for them to do on a Sunday night. Like why this?
Well, if you go to Improv A Go-Go, you're going to see something you've never seen before. You're going to probably see something that really surprises you. You're going to see something that makes you laugh and you didn't think it would. And then you might also see something that makes you laugh so hard that you like hit your face on the chair in front of you. It's a mixed bag. It has all sorts of people. If you don't like something, you're going to like something else.
I think I actually really appreciate that. And I don't know if you feel the same way. I'm like, this is me venturing into my own opinion. I actually really like the notion that with Improv A Go-Go and generally with improv generally, you don't know if every single thing is going to be perfect and polished and like amazing. And I think that, I don't know, I sometimes think we get a little spoiled or a little jaded about, because we have so many entertainment options and everything has to be perfect. I think that just the fact that you're there and you're almost like hunting for like, oh, which are the scenes that are really going to get me? Which are the things that are going to stand out for me? It makes you a more active participant and engaged in the theater. At least that's what I think.
It's hard for me to say as like a non-improv person because I can't relate to that feeling anymore. But as an improviser and as an experienced improviser, I like to see Improv Go-Go because I'll go and I'll see maybe some of my students put up a show, and all of a sudden like a new part of them comes out that I'd never seen in class because they had that freedom. And or you might go see a show at Improv Go-Go and you're like, that's kind of raw. And maybe it's a little like needs a little work, but then you'll see it on a Wednesday run, maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later, because the group had worked on it and you kind of watch their progression over time, which is awesome.
I love that. Okay, my last questions for everybody have been bizarre analogies. So, Hannah, if Improv a Go-Go were a lesser known Olympic sport, which Olympic sport would it be?
Dressage, horse dancing, because
Oh, I know.
I don't know much about dressage, but I imagine that it takes time to be good at it, but it's really fun and super scary to try for the first time. And then also because like people are not really sure what it is, but they will start watching it and then accidentally watch it for 100 hours at a time and not realize that they had done so.
Ah, that is a great answer. Oh, thank you so
Okay.
much, Hannah. That is absolutely perfect. Hey, everybody, big round of applause. Hannah Whiteman, yay! That's fantastic. And now we're bringing in another guest who, if you were watching a few moments ago, he Zoom bombed us. He is a younger, handsomer version of me. Hey, everybody, make a big round of applause for Joe Rapp, I think, is going to pop up somewhere here. No, maybe I'm going to just keep talking to myself. I'm Tane Danger. This is hey, Joe Rapp is talking. He's just invisible. Joe, are you there?
I am here.
Yay! That's fantastic. I can't see you. Where are you calling from that we can't see you? Wrong answers only, please.
A barn.
A dark barn. Wholesome. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So, Joe, you have a unique view because obviously many people know you as a performer with Bearded Men and as a teacher. And then you also are very regular. Oh, there he popped up. He exists. Yay. Hi, Joe.
Yay.
So you've also a longtime bartender at Huge Theater. And so you may have seen almost as many like performances and shows there as maybe anybody except like Butch, who we're going to talk to later. Can I ask you about like Huge Theater in particular, how you've seen that grow and change over the years?
Yeah. I mean, it has been, it's been a fascinating journey to watch it grow. I think especially like as the physical building came into play, that's when the community like all of a sudden kicked into high gear in terms of how many people all of a sudden were jumping into improv. Huge really opened the door. Once they physically opened their doors, it really opened the doors for so many people to give improv a shot. And kind of like, you were talking about earlier, you don't always see you don't see the same people all the time. Improv ends up being it's such an open art form that allows anyone to jump in and try it. And I mean, you could be a plumber, with your day job, and you end up doing improv at night at Huge. And I think that's fascinating. Just from, like when Huge first opened, a lot of times you would see a mix of similar people in different shows. And then now it's every show, different people. You're seeing so many new faces all the time. And I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm curious, I mean, because you have gotten to see as many shows as you have, do you have a particular memory, either of a show that you were in or that you saw that was a time that you're like, oh man, I will never forget this night at Huge Theater?
There was, Oh God, there's been so many. I would say actually it's probably, I think the first time seeing Show X at Huge after watching it. I went to the Bryant Lake Bowl a million times to watch Show X, and seeing it at Huge for the first time was, for some reason, like it like was an emotional, amazing experience. Seeing that show in its like permanent, like quote unquote permanent space, that was, I don't know, like that blew me away. That show meant a lot to me when I first moved back to Minneapolis, getting to watch it, and then getting to see it in the building that I remember talking to Butch about like a year or two previous. I mean, that I don't know, that blew my mind.
Yeah. And I am curious. So for yourself, like as an artist, like I guess, what does it mean to have a place like Huge and Improv A Go-Go? Because I think that for some folks watching at home, they might say, oh, well, Joe's been like part of a company that is successful and has probably opportunities to be in a lot of different places. And yet you keep coming back to Huge and doing shows there. And so I guess why is this place in particular special and important to you and the other members of the Bearded Company?
I think for us, it is because it represents some of the first, it represents some of the first opportunities we ever got as a group. So when we started in college in 2006, we knew about Improv A Go-Go, and we were in Fargo in 2006, and there's no improv there, really. I mean, it's kind of a wasteland. So we just read every book we could, and then we would try to come down to the cities to see real improv as often as we could. But yeah, we signed up to do Improv A Go-Go, and I remember when we did it, we were like the only group doing short form improv there, and I'm pretty sure everyone there thought we were out of our minds. Like, who are these kids doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they driving 3.5 hours each way just for like a 20-minute set? And for us, like, and for me in particular, like a place that is open like that and getting opportunities like that is what spurs, I think, artists that really crave it. It spurs them on to keep doing more and more. And for us to get that opportunity, even for a 20-minute set, meant the world to us. That meant like, oh, we've made it now.
That is so cool. Okay, I've been ending all these chats by asking people to make a good comparison for me. So if Improv A Go-Go were in an 80s film, what 80s film would it be?
Ooh, 80s film? God.
I would let you go into like early 90s if you have to.
I'd say it's Turner and Hooch, Tom Hanks film. Because it's it's pretty buttoned up, but it can get wacky, and you just never quite know what's gonna happen.
Oh, good. I love that. Turner, that's good. All right. Hey, everybody, a big round of applause. Joe Rapp over there. Yay! That's fantastic. Very excited to chat with him. And this is wonderful. I am very honored and excited to introduce our next piece, which is actually a video submission that was sent in by somebody I know, and I think a lot of the people at home know and respect tremendously. She is a powerhouse of comedy, first here in the Twin Cities, but now literally nationally. And I don't want to steal any thunder, but I'll just say, wherever you are, a big round of applause for a hero of mine, Emily Schmidt, everybody.
Happy anniversary, Improv A Go-Go. Wish I could be there to celebrate with you, but really, none of us can. Sounded sad. It was supposed to sound like we're all in this together. Anyway, I'm glad I could do this from afar. Improv a Go-Go was everything to me, okay? It's 2003, 2004. I'm this tall, awkward high schooler who is obsessed with comedy, like can't get enough, soaks it up everywhere. Improv a Go-Go, it's at the Brave New Workshop. It's in this cool part of Minneapolis. Like this suburban girl was like, I'm in the city. I would go every Sunday, as long as my homework was done. That was the rule. My homework had to be done. I was not allowed to finish it at the tea garden. Had to be done. And it was my church. I was religious about it. I went oftentimes with my friend Alex Byrne, and we were like inappropriately obsessed with groups, with people on stage. We would like quote it throughout the week. And it was this complete sanctuary for me. It was the first time I saw long form improv, blew my mind. I have like blogs and diaries about how the rules I'd learned in short form were being applied through long form scene work. And it changed what I thought was possible on stage. It felt like everything sort of clicked of like, this is what I want to do. Like what I'm seeing at Improv a Go-Go is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm a writer now because I didn't find a way to be a professional improviser. But I was like, I want to tell stories and create characters and find these moments forever. And I had my sweet 16 birthday party at Improv a Go-Go. I'm sure my parents were thrilled. Did not want like a co-ed, drinking, unsupervised sex time. I was like, no. Me and 6 friends, we're going to go to the Green Mill for dinner, and then we're going to go see Improv a Go-Go. It wasn't a special lineup or anything. Like all the lineups were special to me. I just loved being able to show that space off to high school friends who hadn't been there. And even though I was basically just an audience member at that point, like it felt like I was part of the community. And that's thanks to that like spirit of everyone involved at Improv a Go-Go. And then huge of this just instant community. I think I performed with the Brave New Workshop teens, but the first group I remember like formally submitting and being like, we're going to do this is Crockpot, which was me and Christy Rumpsa and Maureen Tubbs and Samantha Pereira. And I convinced them that even though we had just been doing like mostly short form at Stevie Ray's, that like we could do this. And we got in and had like formal meetings before to be like, we can't embarrass ourselves. Like this is the big time. We have to bring our A game, and it's the first time we were an improv group. And honestly, I feel like there are countless stories of people saying like, oh yeah, Improv a Go-Go was the first time that my team that I love, that I have performed in festivals with, that is like my group. That's the first time that we were a thing. And it was thanks to Improv a Go-Go. I don't know of any other show in the world that can say that, and for so long. It's magical. It's amazing. And it's not a surprise that huge theater grew from that. It feels like Improv a Go-Go was always separate from all the different schools. And it's the place where, as long as you loved long form, you all could come together in that space. And like the whole, like, where did you train was not a thing. And that's what Huge is. Huge is for everyone in Minneapolis who loves long form. And it feels like it's been in Minneapolis forever, because it kind of has been, really, even though it hasn't always been like a brick and mortar space. Like it has been. It is the community. And I miss it a lot. I've not found anything like it in LA. So happy anniversary, Improv a Go-Go. Thank you for really everything.
Oh, that is so sweet. I love that. Emily Schmidt, everybody, who now is out in LA, she makes a very good point that I want to underscore. I've gotten the opportunity with my theater company, the Theater of Public Policy, to travel all over the country doing improv. And there's great improv all over the country. the Twin Cities is unique, and we do have a special magical improv community here. We have a way of doing improv that feels different, that is more supportive and more, I would honestly argue, caring and loving. And I think that that allows us to be more creative and more of ourselves, and just a wonderful thing that I am very proud to be a part of. And I couldn't agree with Emily more that this is a special place, and there's nowhere else that I would want to call my improv home. So with that, I am going to bring in our next guest, who I'm particularly excited to talk to, because I haven't talked to this person other than the occasional back and forth on social media for quite some time. So without further ado, please, a big round of applause for Mr. Tim Hellendrum. Tim, are you there? Hi, Tim. Hello. Okay, there. Now we look normal to me. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing well. I'm doing well as one can do.
That's good. And where are you calling us from?
I'm actually in the corporate headquarters of a multinational conglomerate. So that's why there's this.
Yeah, I was about to say that explains your wall art. Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing well and seemingly evil. But so you've been around with a huge theater and with Improv a Go-Go. Have you been there all 18 years? I actually don't know when you started.
No. So my first Improv a Go-Go was in 2006, late 2006. So almost the full span, but I still think of myself as coming in at the middle of Minneapolis.
You're the sophomore class of or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I've been around for a while. Spent a lot of time at 2605. When I started at Comedy Sports, that's where I got my sort of improv start in the Twin Cities. And then there were basically people at Comedy Sports who were like, hey, do you want to do a show at Improv a Go-Go? And I was like, I don't know what that is. Never heard of it, didn't know what it was. And so that is when Troy Zimmerman, Damian Johnson, and Andy Kuhlman and I put together the first iteration of Survivors of the Undead Plague. And so my first Improv a Go-Go was performing at Improv a Go-Go, which was exciting and fun and horrifying, but super great.
And this is a great note because Survivors of the Undead Plague is a show that probably a lot of folks know. I mean, for the folks who don't know, this is a show that still runs annually, largely. And I'm wondering, can you just tell us a little bit about that show? Because it's very exciting that I did not know that show's origins were with Improv a Go-Go.
Yeah. So I was at a Comedy Sports rehearsal with Damian and Troy and Andy, and the three of them were talking about zombie films in the row ahead of me. And they were like, oh, we should do this show. We should submit it to Improv a Go-Go. And then Damian turned around and was like, hey, do you want to be in this? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that was sort of the start of Survivors of the Undead Plague. And we basically were big fans of the Romero zombie films and wanted to sort of dig into sort of the characters that you would typically see. And so I think the first run, we had an episodic run, which is probably the only reason that I sort of understood what was going on, because I could put it in the context of like, oh, this is just a TV show, because I had never done long form improv. So yeah, and then it grew and got smaller, and then grew some more, and Eric McEwen was added to the cast, and Andy left the cast, and then it became sort of a show that Huge was putting on. So yeah, it's exciting to be a part of that history, so to speak.
And I mean, again, I've asked a few folks this who have the, oh, look, there's Jen Scott. I was just making sure. Hi, Jen Scott. I'm gonna, you're amazing and okay, you're gonna disappear and we'll talk to you in a second.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
good.
my fault.
All right,
My
so
fault.
Tim, I'm gonna go back to you. So I've been asking a bunch of folks who have been around with the Huge and with Improv a Go-Go for a while. How have you seen it grow and change? What's different
Oh,
now, I guess, than maybe when you were starting out in 2006?
sure. I think what I recognized at the time and why I would go every Sunday was because it was the only thing. You unless you were producing a show at the Bryant Lake Bowl, or you were producing a show at Intermedia Arts, or if you were producing a show at some random theater in the Twin Cities. Improv a Go-Go was the only place to sort of congregate around the art form that wasn't sort of your sort of main stage theaters, which were Stevie Ray's, Comedy Sports, and the Brave New Workshop. And so so what it was then is a lot like what it is now. It's just a place for people to come together and watch improv together, and find stuff you like and see stuff you maybe don't like, and that's part of the fun of it, is that I made a lot of friendships out of just being in that space.
This is a piece I want to push you on a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder, sometimes I wonder if folks who aren't already, taking a class at Huge or the Brave New Workshop or Comedy Sports, maybe they feel like I'm not really part of that community. I don't know, this seems weird. How I both understand that. I also think that that Improv a Go-Go maybe is part of the way to feel like, oh no, this is for everyone. And so I'm curious, if you were to talk to somebody who said, oh, I've never really done improv before, I don't know if I fit in there, what would you say to them about coming to a show, coming to an Improv a Go-Go, or going to Huge?
That's a really good question. I think one thing that I would always tell people is you don't know if you're going to be good at it. You don't know if you are going to like it until you do it. And so Improv a Go-Go for me is a great place to just go and kind of dip your toe in the water, see if you like it, see if you can be inspired by something. Because I think when we started Survivors, and then I started going to all the shows after that, I think it's those shows after I performed that I started to realize like what you could do with improv. I think that I think in those early days I saw, it was the first time I had seen sort of really dramatic improv. I had really seen people doing really weird stuff. The Mustache Rangers doing sort of these special shows where they would read a script. And I remember there was a show, and I think it was Fiscally Responsible, which is largely made up of, or was largely made up of, the Four Humors theater guys. And during one of their sets, somebody, I think it was them, but it was during one of their sets, somebody in the audience just like yelled and was like, "No, you're doing it wrong." And I was like, "What's happening? Why is that guy yelling?" And then I realized that he was an audience plant, and he was like this sort of guy that was going to teach them how to do improv better. And clearly he was awful. And so there was that moment of like, what, this can be done on stage. And so as I if I were to ever talk to somebody that was like, I don't know about improv, it's like, I would just push them to say like, hey, until you do it, you don't know if you can do it or not. And until you go see a show, you won't know if you enjoy it or not, because there are so many stories of people that went to Improv a Go-Go for the first time, are huge for the first time, and then came out and was like, I didn't even know that that's what it was going to be like, because their frame of reference is, whose line is it anyway? And that's kind of it. So so it's exciting it's exciting when people are asking that question, because it's a time to tell them to just do it, just go for it.
Just do it. I love that. Can we copyright that? Just do.
Yeah, just do it.
Hey, okay. My last question for everybody comparing it. And this might be teeing you up too easily, but I like you. And so if huge theater were a supernatural creature, what supernatural creature would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. So I sort of see now I'm like, my brain is thinking about all these different cryptids.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah, I'm like, New Jersey Devil? No. The Mothman? No. You know, when I think about improv, it is or Improv a Go-Go, it is a little bit of everything. You never know what you are going to get. So I would say like a griffin is probably the best best descriptor of what Improv a Go-Go is. Like, it's a little bit lion, it's also a little bit some sort of bird. It's, you know,
It's got a little snake in it.
yeah, there's a little snake sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's very noble, but it could rip your head off if you cross it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good. Well, on that violent note, hey everybody, please a big round of applause to Ellen Drung, everybody! Yay! That's fantastic. And then we already got a bit of a sneak peek of our next magical guest. I couldn't be happier. I saw this person recently from the other side of the street, and we didn't get a chance to talk, so I'm so happy to get to talk to them now. Hey everybody, it is Jen Scott joining us. Yay! Hi, Jen Scott. You're muted. And so while you're muted, I'm going to take a moment to say that you have amazing lighting so that you look very like Barbara Walters, like circa 1992 right now.
Thank you so much. I take that as an ultimate compliment.
It is. It is meant that way. Yes. Jen Scott, thank you so much for being here. You are an institution of the Twin Cities improv scene. I am humbled every time I get to watch you, much less perform with you. Do you remember your first time either performing with or going and seeing Improv a Go-Go?
Thank you, Dane Danger. Dane Danger. You are a joy, and we're so lucky to have you. You are a wellspring of joy and the positivity, and we are so lucky that you are adding such class. Thank you for classing us up, all of us. I'm just saying. I'm back in today. My group got to be a part of the first Improv a Go-Go. So
Really?
Yeah, I'm really old.
No, that is so cool. So you were part of the first Improv a Go-Go. You got to tell us this story. What was the group? What was this all like?
Wow, really? This is really kind of you. I will tell you.
Oh no, this is like the point of the show, Jen. This is what we came here for.
The first Improv a Go-Go was actually in St. Paul.
What? I feel like thousands of young improvisers' minds just exploded all across the Twin Cities.
It was terrible. It was at the Palace Theater. How hip of us. Yeah. And Father John Misty was playing.
Wow.
And then after that, Palace Theater, before it was purchased and made super fancy, was purchased by the Brave New Workshop. And there was a show there, the Minnesota show, but it wasn't actually in the actual theater of the Palace. It was in the lobby. So there was a stage set up between the two grand staircases. There was like black plywood put down. Butch Roy might have built it, I'm not sure. And like the skinniest of backstages, like backstage was literally a foot wide. Can ask Jim Robinson about that too, because Jim Robinson was part of it. And so the Brave New Workshop was kind enough to let Improv A Go-Go open there. So in the weird haunted lobby bar, and then you walk past the bathrooms to the weird haunted actual lobby, that's where Improv A Go-Go happened for the first time.
That is so cool. And you were saying you had a group that was part of the very first one. What was the group? What did you do?
We were called, just a moment.
No, this is the life we all live these days, is we have children in the other room. I have a cat in the other room, but I think that is literally the exact same.
No, he probably wants a snack too. This child also wants a snack. The group's name was Unitard. It was me, Beth Dickey, who later became Beth Almer, Liz Ryan Murray, and Brian Chesney. And people are like, who are these wonderful people? They're wonderful. They're all recovering. I was the only one that didn't grow up Catholic. That was probably our main, yeah. And we all wore overalls because it was, like, we were being adorable, but not adorable, just unitard. And we did a montage. I don't think we did anything fancy, just a montage. We had all met doing Six Ring Circus. Beth and I got super close by teaching the teen troupe for years and years together at the Brave New Workshop. And oh my goodness, such funny, smart people. Brian is still in town. I wish he was still doing improv because A, he's funny, and B, he had some of the best space work ever. Like, yeah, we could get like Brian McChesney, James Rohn, and Jake Scott together. It'd be like Space Work Central. Liz Ryan Murray was actually from Chicago originally, now lives in Orange County, I think. So smart, so funny. And Beth and her family moved to New Jersey, however they say it, and has a beautiful family. And so yeah, we just did a montage.
Was there that first time? First of all, I'm curious. Like, was it Butch, or who we're going to talk to in a minute? But was he like, "Hey, I have this idea to do like a show that night. Would you put something up?" How did this happen?
That's a really good, Butch, you're gonna have to help me.
He'll be on in a minute. You just make something up right now, and then in good improv, he'll just have to agree with it.
I think there's like 4 or 5 of us that were asked to perform, and we were just lucky enough to be asked.
Yeah. And do you remember that night? Like, was it, you already said it was wonderful, but were you like, yeah, we're on to something. This is cool.
I think we were all like young, and we all were like giddy, and we all, like, I think there was probably a part of us also recognizing how wonderful and slightly insane this was, like, in the lobby of a haunted theater doing improv to hopefully some friends that drove to St. Paul, and we were
I like that you presume all of your friends had to drive to St. Paul because none of them were there.
Lives in St. Paul.
Oh, Jim Robinson, I hope you're not watching. Anyway, okay, so I'll ask you, I have asked a bunch of people this, but since now we've identified you as one of the, origin story members of Improv A Go-Go, how have you seen it change over that time here in the Twin Cities?
I thank you. That's a wonderful question. I'm so curious. It has been such a wonderful, like, roller coaster. It feels like it's constantly getting rediscovered as new improvisers are created. We have generations of audience members who come, and then generations of performers, old and new. And I think it's become this really wonderful, like, petri dish of possibilities. Oh dear. there's crying involved.
Okay. You have your own new generation of improvisers to get to, but I have to ask you, no. Like, I have to ask you the question of it. I'm asking everyone to make comparisons for me. So if Improv a Go-Go, huge theater, were a famous scientist, what scientist would they be?
See, and I'm trying to think of my famous scientists because I'm out of practice. So the first one that popped to mind would be like, oh, Richard Feynman, because he's so smart and he does things in his own certain way. How smart is he? And he created basically language around science. Hi. So maybe.
Richard Feynman is a great answer. Oh my gosh, quickly as children are running into the screen. Hi, kids.
Hey, just a moment. I'm just gonna mute myself.
Well, okay, I don't know. This is fine. This is delightful. By the way, if you Improv a Go-Go, great for kids. I think most of the time it's a little bit of a dice roll, but look, you can see it's a family affair. It brings people together. It's beautiful.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh no, this is delightful. This is far more entertaining than anything I said. Oh, are you okay?
And you have to give me a snack.
I don't have any snacks. I have a Diet Coke. Here, Jen, I'm going to hand you this Diet Coke through the camera, and then we're going to say goodnight. Thank you so much. Thank you. Here you go. Jen, you're fantastic. We love you. Hello to the whole family. Hi, everybody. Okay, good night. I'm going to say goodbye. All right. That was perfect. That was great. Oh, okay. I'm going to switch it up. We have a finale. We have the person that everyone's been alluding to with lots of honorifics, the person who came up with this thing, as we just heard, and we will try and confirm, potentially built the first ever stage that Improv a Go-Go ever happened on, definitely built the stages that things at Huge Theater happened on. Hey, everybody, it's Butch Roy right there. Butch, where are you calling us from?
I actually snuck into your childhood home.
Wow.
Yeah.
You cleaned up nice in there. It's good. Thank you for organizing my shoes.
Just that half of the room. Everything else has just been shoved behind the camera.
Thank you so much for doing this and for having
goodness.
me and creating Improv a Go-Go. Can I ask? We got a little bit of the origin story from Jen, but 18 years ago.
Oh my God.
What was going on that you were like, you know what, we need a variety improv night?
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of people, I came up through the Brave New Workshop classes and into the Six Ring Circus, which was the Tuesday night show, and I performed there as part of my student team. But once Five Man Job was created, which was my trio, we wanted to do a Herald trio, and once we sort of left that system, we didn't really know where to go, and how to produce a show, and what we ran into were a lot of people in sort of a similar situation where they didn't know what was next, and we had some halting attempts to put together our own shows and like put up in indie shows, and it's difficult. There's a lot of wear and tear that goes into that. But also, at the time, the audiences weren't really super versed in what improv was in the Twin Cities. It wasn't, I mean, it still probably isn't, generally widely known or understood what long form is. So we wanted to make something to sort of address both of those things, like to give improvisers that were looking for a place to play, a place to do that, and audiences that were looking for improv, an easy way to find it. And at the time, I was the technical director at the Brave New Workshop. So I had a conversation with John Sweeney, and we sat down, and the St. Paul stage had just cleared their schedule on Sunday nights because it wasn't working out. So there was free time and space. And I like to jokingly say that, like, we came in and we wrote the proposal as such that, like, it would be crazy for them to say no. Like, I had keys, I was the technician, the bartender had agreed to come in on his own. We'll run the show, we'll take tickets, we won't touch anything in the backstage. It would literally cost them money to send someone there to make sure that we weren't doing the show. So like we tried to make it that easy for them to say yes to it. And John just, the deal literally was, as long as people keep coming to this thing, you can keep doing it. So we opened in St. Paul in May, and then on Sunday, when Sunday nights cleared up in at 2605 in October, we moved the show over to the Minneapolis stage, and it stayed there until Huge Theater opened. So it ran at 2605 for 8.5 years.
And so is it just happenstance then that it was on Sunday nights, or was there a particular reason and I guess, I mean, even if it was originally, you could have changed it at some point, but it's always been Sunday nights.
Yeah. Well, initially we wanted to work around the schedule of the Brave New Workshop, obviously, because we were asking a big favor of them to give us their stage. But it wasn't a super viable night otherwise. But it was still the weekend. We tried producing shows, like we tried hitting Dinkytown, and like Thursday nights were big because it was like pre-weekend. I don't know. But it seemed like in Minneapolis, like Sunday nights was still weekend enough to like go out and like look for something to do, because you didn't work that day, but not, nothing crazy, because it was a Sunday night. And we made it $1 because we wanted it to just be easy enough for everybody to try out, even if they were like just a little bit curious, like it's only $1, like you're really not investing that much into this experience, just to come check it out. Yeah.
Was there a point that, because you started this thing and Jen was talking about, you got some folks to do it, and having produced some shows myself, I know that there's sort of a thing at the beginning where you feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill, and sometimes it can feel that way for a long time. But I do wonder if there was a point where you're like, oh my gosh, this is a thing now. Like this is sort of like got its own momentum and energy, and it exists in a way. If that ever clicked for you in some noticeable way.
Not to be too like over the top with it, but I think right from the start there was clearly something there. And as fun as it would be to say that like we had all these high-minded things figured out, like we wanted to make a place for everybody. We did. Part of the deal was that it had to be open to all performers to come perform. We still didn't know really the breadth and depth of what that meant. But we posted about it on this improv message board, because this is, and that's the weirdest thing about saying, 18 years ago, like this is pre-social media. It's really pre-internet in a big way. Like it was pre-Google. So our biggest competition was The Simpsons, really. And honestly, that kept some people at home. Like I got the new Simpsons come out on Sundays. But on the first night we were standing there, it was like 10 minutes to showtime, and there were only 3 people in the audience, and we were just like, oh god, this was a bad idea. And then 65 people showed up for the first night in spring in St. Paul on a Sunday night to see improv
after 5 o'clock.
Yeah, right. It shouldn't even exist. It's like the castle in Krull. And we told the audience that night, like, and a lot of whom were improvisers, but if you want this thing to exist, you have to feed it. Like we can't just take that passive role all the time. As we can have some responsibility as audience and as artists to actually support this thing. So if you want this to be an option in your city, like you have to go to it. We opened up signups for groups. And originally we were just taking signups by email. Like if you want 4 weeks, just send me an email. And in like 2 days, we had booked out 6 months of shows. So we had to stop. We're like, okay, well, that's clearly like there's clearly an abundance of performers that are interested in performing. So that we switched over to a lottery system because it was just overwhelming. So yeah, right from the get-go, there clearly a lot of people that just needed a place to play and wanted a place to play, and the energy that went into that of like, imagine like 24 improvisers showing up just really hungry to like, oh my God, and really excited to get on stage. It was infectious. It was great. So
is there something about Improv a Go-Go that most people don't know, even people who go to it a lot? Because you are like, have your fingers in all the different parts of the pie. I don't know if that's
oh man, I feel like there's a lot of like little tiny things, from over the years that and it's hard to say like what is even really what's of interest, because it's, it's right here. Like you've been so close to it for so long that it's like, I don't know. One of my favorite silly things is that like somewhere along the line, we were faced with the possibility that we needed to raise the ticket price because of how the state of Minnesota changed how they do taxes for tickets. This is super boring, but anyway.
No, you're talking to the right guy to talk about state tax policy. Let's go.
Because they're going to tax individual tickets, the ticket price would have ended up being like $1.12. So I had a conversation with Aaron at the Brave New Workshop, and we're like, we need to, do we want to, have it this weird amount, or should we make it $2? And we've been for years just like hammering on this, like it's always going to be $1. It's always $1. So I wrote her back and I was like, can we lower the ticket price so it's technically like 92 cents, so it lands at $1? And they were like, yeah, I guess so. And that was one of those weird moments of like, are we like, we're fighting to like drive our ticket prices down just to stay at this stupid line. But it was, I don't know, it was important to us that it was like, we, as much as we could, remove any barrier that we could come up with to the performers producing it and audiences trying it. That was always sort of those two groups that we were looking out, trying to see from that perspective. And then we would do stupid things like, like I think one of the things that really over the years kind of really informed the feel of what it was part of the deal with the Brave New Workshop was that we wouldn't use the backstage or the green room. So we only had the lobby, and we always had to provide our own box office. So we got to meet every single person that came to the shows, which was super for years and years. But because we didn't have any green room, it became this really cool gathering space, and audiences, and like Taj said at the beginning, like you would show up and you would just hang out in the lobby and like, there's Finger Gun, they're right over there. And like all of your favorite performers like had to be out with you in the audience. They couldn't go hide backstage and only show up when they went on.
Yeah.
And I think that became a really important part of the personality that really bled into what Huge Theater became, was that it was so not just accessible, but like recognizable and relatable. Like these people are just like me.
Yeah. Okay, so I was given that we can only go till 5:20, so we're almost out of time, and I have to ask you at least two more questions. One is, there's a lot of folks, you're the executive director of Huge Theater, you help with everything that happens there. There's probably a lot of people wondering who didn't see a big post that you put up recently, like how things are there now and like how things are going in that world, and if there's anything you just want to say about that piece, sort of this weird present moment that we're in.
Yeah, it is really weird. I think people need to. I think we just need to remind ourselves that some of the things that we're excited to get out and do when we imagine going out again, like those things that we're looking forward to having back, and the things that really make the personality of our cities won't be open right away. There's a coalition of music venues. And they're using the hashtag of first to close, last to open, and we're very much in that same boat. It's going to be a while before we have public gatherings of we seat 100 people, and we're a tiny space. Before we have gatherings of even 100 people under the same roof. So just a reminder that there's no curbside option for the performing arts. Like you have to support that stuff if you want it to still be there when you come back. And I think everyone does. I don't think. I don't think we want to just have restaurants and bars when we emerge from all this.
Yeah. And that is a perfect segue into the future looking piece, which is when we do come back and when we are through this and knowing that some things will be different. And where do you kind of see Huge Theater, Twin Cities Improv Theater going? I mean, if we are back here for the 36th anniversary, I think that's right. I don't know, where are you looking for this all to go? Do you have a notion?
Oh man, no. I mean, from the standpoint of Improv Go-Go, not at all, because that was always the most beautiful thing, was that we weren't in control of it. Nobody was steering this thing, and some of that was taken on by Huge as well, of trusting that the community at large will always have more and better ideas than the 3 or 4 of us that are running this thing. So the best thing that we could do is make sure that we're just maintaining we're being good stewards of the space where people can come bring those ideas. And I think as much as we can continue to do that, and I think that means we're going to learn to be more open to things like online improv, because that's what people are practicing right now. I think this is probably going to inject a lot of really weird creativity into the shape and the look of what the art form is in the future. And I'm super excited for that. I don't think it'll replace gathering together in person, but it'll probably definitely have an impact on it.
That is fantastic. Quickly, if Huge Theater were a outdoor activity that you can do, sort of, and it can't be dressage, what would it be?
Oh, if.
Yeah, I guess it could be.
Oh man, it really could be. Well, anyway, I'm
I
gonna
want to
say,
build Huge an amphitheater now.
right?
Yeah.
Right, or we should just get up on the roof and just do it up there. You can just gather on the sidewalk and we'll be 10 feet above you. I'm gonna say extreme frisbee.
Oh, that's good. That fits very nicely with it having gotten really started in like 2002.
Right.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
This was fabulous. Hey, everybody, can you do a big round of applause? Butch Roy right there. This was such an honor to get to be part of this. And this guy does more than anybody probably will ever appreciate or know. And so thank you.
Thank you, Tane Danger. By the way, thank you so much for hosting this whole thing. I tell everyone that will listen that you're the best MC and interviewer that I've ever encountered. So I'm really, really glad that you're able to just move us through this whole thing. It's been fantastic.
It was, I loved it. It was so fun to get to talk to all these amazing improvisers. And I'll say to everybody who's watching at home, to just back up something that Butch says, and this is something I've been trying to say to everyone. Yes, we are living in a complicated, hard time, and we are all going through and dealing with challenging things. There is a very proactive, concrete thing that we can all do. And for me, I will say, doing something good makes me feel better. And to what Butch was saying before, the thing that we can do is support the things that we want to still be here when this whole thing ends. And it requires us taking probably some time to think about what is really meaningful and valuable to us. My guess is that if you spent an hour and 20 minutes watching me chat with improvisers about their memories of a particular show, improv and Huge Theater and things like Improv a Go-Go are meaningful and important to you. And so I'll just say it, support them, and support them now like you've probably never supported them before, because I want this to be here for years to come. And I'm guessing you do as well. And that is the proactive, concrete thing that we can do to make sure that they're here, because we can't wait for somebody else to do it. It's really up to us now. So with that, I am going to say thank you to all of our amazing improv performers who joined us today to check in, talk to us a little bit about their past with Improv a Go-Go and with Huge Theater. Thank you so much to Brianna who's been pulled a lot of this together and who's been backstage virtually this whole time, to Huge and to Butch and to all of our speakers. I will tell you, it is just a little bit later this evening, 6 o'clock. You can actually watch some online improv from Huge Theater. Toaster, because people toast, they pop up like toast. Starts at 6 o'clock, and you can tune into that. And it's fun. If you're in Minneapolis, it's raining outside anyway. And I don't need, The Simpsons is probably still on, but this is better. Watch this. So without any more blabbing for me, I will say one more time, my name is Tane Danger. I had such a good time this evening chatting with all these amazing people. Thank you for watching. Thank you, everybody at home. And I hope so much that we get to see you virtually soon and in person again in not too long. But until then, be well, have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you later.